Marcus wiped down table 7 for the third time that evening, his hands moving in practice circles even as his mind drifted to the electricity bill waiting at home. His daughter Lily's hearing aids needed new batteries too, the expensive kind that insurance barely covered. At 28, he'd imagined life would look different, but 3 years ago, when his wife walked out, leaving him alone with their deaf 4-year-old, he'd learned that dreams bend to necessity. The restaurant job paid the bills, mostly, and the evening shift meant he could be there for Lily's morning therapy sessions. He was tired, bone-deep tired, but he was managing. That's what he told himself every night. The evening rush had just begun when Marcus noticed the elderly woman being seated at table 12. She wore an elegant navy dress, pearls at her throat, and carried herself with the quiet dignity of old money. The younger man accompanying her, tailored suit, expensive watch, the kind of polished confidence that came from boardrooms and private jets, pulled out her chair with practiced care. Marcus grabbed 2 menus and headed over, his server smile firmly in place. "Good evening, folks. Welcome to Rosemary's. Can I start you off with something to drink?" He directed his greeting to both of them, but the man immediately leaned toward the woman, touching her arm gently. That's when Marcus saw it, the slight confusion in her eyes, the way she tilted her head, searching. He'd seen that look 1,000 times in Lily's face when someone spoke to her without realizing she couldn't hear them. Without thinking, Marcus's hands moved. "Good evening," he signed, his movements fluid and natural. "My name is Marcus. I'll be taking care of you tonight. What would you like to drink?" The woman's face transformed. Her eyes widened, then crinkled with a smile so genuine it made Marcus's chest tighten. She signed back quickly, enthusiastically, and Marcus found himself grinning as he responded. She wanted water with lemon, no ice. She asked if the salmon was fresh. She made a joke about her son being too protective about her diet. Their hands flew back and forth while the man watched, mouth slightly open. "I'm sorry," Marcus signed to him after a moment. "Would you like to order too?" Yes, of course," the man stammered, but there were tears gathering at the corners of his eyes. Where did you learn to sign?" Marcus felt his cheeks warm. "My daughter. She's deaf. Been signing since she was diagnosed at 18 months. For the next hour, Marcus found himself stopping by table 12 whenever he had a spare moment. The woman, he learned her name was Eleanor, was delightful, full of stories and wit. She told him about her garden, asked about Lily, wanted to know her favorite color and whether she liked books. Her son, who introduced himself simply as James, watched their interactions with something like wonder on his face. The restaurant had grown quieter when Marcus brought their dessert. Eleanor signed something that made him laugh out loud, drawing looks from other diners. She'd asked if the chocolate cake was worth the inevitable lecture from her son about sugar. Marcus assured her it absolutely was, signing conspiratorially that he'd testify on her behalf if needed. "You've given her the best evening she's had in months," James said quietly as Marcus set down the plates. "We've been to dozens of restaurants since I moved her closer to me. She always smiles and nods, but she can't really participate. Tonight, she's been herself. Completely herself." Marcus felt that familiar ache in his throat. "I get it. My daughter, sometimes the world feels like it's not built for her, you know. Finding places where she can just be a kid, where people don't make her feel different, it matters." James pulled out a business card, pressing it into Marcus's hand. "I own a company. Several companies, actually. I'm always looking for people who understand that businesses should serve all people, not just the convenient ones. If you're ever interested in something different." "I appreciate it," Marcus interrupted gently, pocketing the card without looking. "But I'm good here. The hours work with my daughter's schedule. That's what matters." Eleanor signed something sharp and quick to her son, who actually blushed. Marcus caught the gist. She was scolding James for what she perceived as condescension. Marcus signed back to her, defending James, explaining that he understood the offer was genuine. She studied him for a long moment, then signed something that made his eyes sting. "You're a good father. Your daughter is lucky. I'm the lucky one," he signed back. When they left, James insisted on leaving a tip that made Marcus's hands shake when he counted it later, $500. Tucked underneath was that business card and a note. "My mother says you're exactly the kind of person who makes the world better. Please call me. Not about a job, about something more important." Marcus pocketed everything and finished his shift, his mind spinning. At home, he paid the babysitter, checked on Lily, asleep with her favorite stuffed elephant clutched to her chest, and finally looked at the card. James Richardson, CEO, Richardson Industries. Marcus's breath caught. Richardson Industries was one of the largest manufacturing companies in the country. This wasn't just some wealthy businessman. This was wealth on a completely different scale. He almost threw the card away. What could a man like that want with a waiter? But something made him save it, tucking it into his wallet next to Lily's school photo. 3 days later, his phone rang from an unknown number. Against his better judgment, he answered. Marcus, it's James Richardson, from the restaurant. Please don't hang up. Marcus sank onto his couch. I'm listening. My mother hasn't stopped talking about you. Well, signing about you. James's voice carried a smile. She wants to do something. We want to do something. My company has been exploring accessibility initiatives, but we've been doing it wrong. We've been putting people in boardrooms making decisions about communities they don't understand. Mom thinks, and I agree, that we need someone who lives this reality. Not as a consultant, as a director. Mr. Richardson. James, please. James, I'm a waiter. I dropped out of community college when my daughter was born. I don't know anything about running corporate programs. You know the most important thing, you understand what's actually needed. Everything else, you can learn. We'll provide training, education, whatever you need. The position comes with a salary that would mean you'd never have to worry about hearing aid batteries again. Health insurance that would cover all of Lily's therapy. And Marcus, his voice grew softer. My mother wants to meet Lily. She's been alone in her silence for so long. My father never learned to sign. I've tried, but I'm terrible at it. She saw in you what I want to build, a world where people like her aren't afterthoughts. Marcus thought about Lily, about the years ahead of her, about all the restaurants and stores and schools that wouldn't have a single person who could speak to her in her language. He thought about Eleanor's face when he'd signed to her, that pure joy of being seen and understood. I'd need flexible hours, he said finally. For Lily's appointments. Done. And I'll probably make mistakes. A lot of them. We all will. That's how we learn. Marcus closed his eyes. Okay. Yes. Let's try. 6 months later, Marcus stood in front of Richardson Industries' first fully accessible flagship store, Lily's hand in his. Eleanor stood beside them, elegant as ever, signing her approval as she surveyed the space. Every employee had been trained in basic sign language. Visual alert systems complemented audio announcements. The design incorporated feedback from dozens of deaf community members that Marcus had spent months meeting with and learning from. Daddy, Lily signed, her small hands careful and precise. Everyone here can talk to me. Marcus knelt down, eye level with his daughter. Yeah, baby. Everyone here can talk to you. She threw her arms around his neck, and he held her close, catching Eleanor's eye over Lily's shoulder. The older woman pressed her hand to her heart, then signed simply, thank you. But Marcus shook his head, signing one-handed while holding his daughter with the other, thank you. For seeing me. For seeing us. That evening at the restaurant, all those months ago, he'd been just another server, invisible to most, struggling to keep his head above water. One moment of kindness, one gesture of basic human decency, had changed everything, not because kindness should be rewarded with jobs and opportunities, but because it had connected people who needed each other. Eleanor needed someone who understood her world. Marcus needed someone who believed he was capable of more than survival. And Lily now had a world opening up to her, one person, one business, one sign at a time. Sometimes, Marcus still picked up shifts at Rosemary's, just to stay grounded. He'd wipe down tables and take orders, and every time he saw someone struggling to communicate, he'd remember that kindness doesn't cost anything, but it can change everything. Not because the world is fair, or because good deeds are always rewarded, but because we're all just trying to be understood. And sometimes, against all odds, someone actually listens.